Part of my mission as a local missions volunteer was going out into the street and evangelizing and praying over people while also offering them the message of the gospel whenever possible in a language that they can understand. Admittedly, however, a lot of those people who are unhoused in my city already had a relationship with God, and some of them even said that they talked to God daily. This reminded me of the concept of liberation theology, where a key defining term of the theology is God's preferential option for the poor. In his seminal work, Transforming Mission, the missiologist David Bosch identifies the key theological concept of God's preferential option for the poor as a response to the growing wealth disparity between the rich and the poor, and how rich Christians today tend to interpret biblical sayings on poverty as metaphors for themselves, or that they themselves are poor because they are poor in spirit, and so they may not feel personally responsible or obligated to tend to the cries of those who are actually poor. The term preferential option for the poor and liberation theology was further extrapolated at CLAM 2 in 1979 and was further explained by the liberation theologian Gustavo Gutierrez to mean that God's attention is to the poor first, that the poor have a privileged place in the hierarchy of God's mission, or that even God plays favorites, and those favorites of his are the poor and marginalized people in societies throughout the world. This view is supported in scripture verses where Jesus clearly promotes the marginalized people, such as children, weary laborers, the poor, women, as having preference by God in opposition to those who succeed in society, such as the rich, the wise, and the rulers of the world. You can see, for references, Matthew 11:25-29. Further evidence for this theological concept can also be found in the circumstances surrounding God's mission in Scripture, such as sending his angels to appear before women at the tomb of Jesus, and even Jesus himself appearing to these women first, before his male disciples, Matthew 28:1-10. Another story that evidences this theological concept is when the angels appeared to the shepherds in the field to announce the coming of the Messiah, rather than appearing to elite Roman and Judean rulers to proclaim his coming. This is in Luke 2:8-20. The church and rich Christians have to recognize their benevolence mission to the poor as an inescapable responsibility. Faith without works is dead, as it says in James 2:14-26. And those who are last will be first, says Jesus in his famous Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 20:16. When Christians serve the poor in their communities, they may even be serving Christ himself, disguised as the poor or with the poor in spirit. Despite praying over unhoused people on the streets near my church and offering hugs to them, I knew that my actions alone were inadequate for the purpose of fulfilling liberation from poverty. As quickly as I appeared in their lives, I was quickly gone again, and I would return home to my place of comfort and ease, living in a gated community at seminary, whereas that person that I had prayed for on the streets would still be unsheltered and at risk of further trauma, with threats of disease, weather conditions, drug withdrawals, and crime still being a risk factor. Even though we had prayed together, I had prayed for their salvation, and some of them had accepted it as well, they are still those who live in the pain of an eternal present. So I asked myself this: what resources are available to the unhoused people living in Pomona, California? Is the city doing anything to help resolve this issue? Rosalia Butler, the city clerk of Pomona, California, gave me a list of the nonprofit organizations that help the unhoused people, as well as more information on unhoused people's outreach programs. On the city's website, I learned that the city of Pomona was one of the first cities in Los Angeles County to dedicate a city position specifically to address issues of homelessness, known as the Homeless Services Coordinator, a position which they inaugurated in October 2000 with their first hire. Prior to that, the Pomona Continuum of Care Coalition was established in 1999 and currently comprises over 40 different agencies, including service providers, advocates, faith-based organizations, local government representatives, county departments, and homeless and formerly homeless people and concerned citizens, and they continue to meet to this day on the first Thursday of every month. There is also the Homeless Outreach Program, which consists of a mobile outreach team consisting of outreach staff from the City of Pomona Homeless Programs team and outreach professionals from organizations such as Volunteers of America, Tri-City Mental Health Services, East Valley Community Health Center, Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, Pomona Outreach Team, and the Pomona Police Department Quality of Life teams. Through these programs, homeless residents are provided guidance in the identification of barriers to overcoming homelessness and the development of a plan to address these challenges. The teams then assist these residents at a highly supportive level to address their needs, including accessing mainstream services, increasing income, developing self-determination, and accessing shelter and housing. The teams provide outreach via vehicle and on foot. During my street evangelism, I got the nagging feeling that what I was doing was theologically significant, praying over people, inviting them into a relationship with Jesus Christ, and giving them directions of where to go after they've done so. I felt that this was theologically significant, yet missionally inadequate. That there was more to be done than what I was able to do in such a short amount of time. Evangelism was not enough, mainly because many of the unhoused had already attended Christian church and had an active awareness of God in some form or another. In order for missions to reflect the shalom that God plans for us and for creation, I knew I had to have a fully integrated mission theology for this issue. That is why I met with Rob Redman of Homes of Promise, a Christian-oriented transitional housing organization that provides structured housing for homeless people, with 2 houses dedicated for women and children and 6 houses for men. After meeting with Rob and hearing about how crucial the faith and spiritual disciplines practices are for the recovery and stability of unhoused people, I decided to move forward with launching a new reboot recovery program in one of the men's homes. My goal is to assist in the trauma recovery process of those men in the home who still have internal wounds, or soul wounds as reboot recovery programs designate them, and to heal them with an approach that integrates theology, psychology, and community. Reboot Recovery is a Christian-based trauma recovery program that I host as a grant-funded facilitator to assist people with recovery of trauma and reflection of traumatic events in their lives through a gospel-oriented course that usually runs for about 12 weeks. So I will love to explain more about that course and its details if you want. You can email me again at parkerjennings@fuller.edu to find out more information. For those who still live on the street, there is hope in the midst of a bleak society. There are not just systems of oppression, corruption, and evil at work in the community, but there are systems of reconciliation, prosperity, and goodness available in the city of Pomona and elsewhere as well. I hope to continue to plug people into these resources to share awareness of them and to help people that are living on the streets to get back on their feet.